Sean is, in my experience, probably the epitome of what we used to call a brother's boy. Old school, old-fashioned, an interesting combination of seriousness and over-the-top humor, and I have stories about that. Well, I can go back to August 1994 when I first arrived here, the first time I was here as principal. Sean was the first student to come into my office. He had no invitation, he just came in. And in hindsight, I now know what he was doing. He was checking out this strange new brother from the East Coast. He wanted to get the inside scoop, which is probably why he's in the sports news business these days. He immediately set about to cross-examine me to find out what made me tick and what plans I had for the school. We've had a good laugh about that from time to time. But that was my first experience of Sean. Sean has claimed his places at different stations in life, different stages in life, by being himself, by being fully committed to what he does, by having a great positive spirit, always looking out for how he can help others. These are all aspects of his personality, deep in the core of who he is, that makes him a likable and reliable person. And he will, in my mind, in the years I've worked with young men, certainly remain as a standout for me. His philanthropy is simply an extension of who he is as a person. Sean's work with the Hoops from Home program tells you a lot about how he sees his place in life. He knows basketball. He has a passion for basketball. He's turned that into a tool for serving, in this case, children of active military personnel, giving them a little experience of community building, particularly at a time when maybe a dad or a mom is away on active duty. So something that he does from the heart, he does with great passion, great dedication. And what I appreciate about Sean and that venture is the number of people he's gotten involved to support him in that mission. So he married his college sweetheart. They got settled in Southern California, raising three beautiful kids, Jack, Morgan, and Kellen. Gives his all to his kids. He's pretty busy about 6 months of the year. But even during those busy 6 months when college basketball is on television, he is constantly paying attention to his kids. And then during the times of the year when he's not working that intensely, he's even more present to them.
Dr. Wilhelmy is probably one of the most intelligent, hardworking, and generous physicians I've met. And he's a guy I don't really think I realized what an individual I was meeting when I first met him. And over the years, he's become a very important person in my life, and I've learned what an important person he is in the lives of all the kids that have gone through De La Salle High School. We first met in 1999. I was a second-year med student at UC Irvine, and John was on a trip with the Filipino Medical Society of Northern California. So we actually met at SFO on our way to the Philippines, and we were there for a medical mission serving 5,000 people, and John led the orthopedic team, searching out interesting and challenging orthopedic cases that couldn't be handled in the Philippines. The way he's served the kids at this school for over 25 years is a very special thing. When I look at it, it's something I would hope to do someday, and John's got huge shoes to fill. To have somebody committed to taking care of high school athletes the way John has over the years is a very special thing. And once you're outside this community, I've seen it from the outside. It's not like that everywhere, not even close for that matter. To have the consistency of one voice rendering a medical opinion, and not just caring for an athlete, but really finding care for them, which is an important thing because that's what a team physician is really, is kind of a point guard like in basketball. We're not all trained to do everything. And over the years, John's assisted in finding care for other kids when he hasn't been able to care for them himself. And that goes medically, he's helped out in every way, shape, and form for the kids at the school, and it's a very special thing. I met Doc first in 1999 in the Philippines. I reconnected with him again in January 2004 on another trip to the Philippines. And then I eventually moved up here in 2008. And John, the first thing he always speaks about is his family. I know everything about Chris, Sean, Patrick, Malou, and the funny thing is I have yet to meet his boys, but I feel like I know them because that's the first thing on John's mind is his family and what's happening in his home, and he goes on forever and with great pride about his boys, and I for one feel like I know all of them, and we haven't even met face to face.
The 1985 team was the first team to be ranked nationally, and it was the first team I felt we had that deserved to be ranked nationally. They were the first, I consider the first dominant De La Salle football team. I don't think anybody, it's either 35 or 40 points, came within 35 or 40 points throughout their whole season. They're unbelievable. I think they're most memorable for me was their game against Moreau, where we went down there. Moreau was ranked the number one 3A team in the East Bay, and we played at Moreau, my old alma mater. It was probably the last large crowd that's been in Moreau. There's about 8,000 people, standing room only, and I felt we played the greatest half of football that we'd ever played up to that point in De La Salle history. And up until the varsity 2010 survey game, it was the greatest half of football ever played by a De La Salle team. We went out to, I think, something like a 42 or 49-0 lead. They were just an unbelievable team, great skill, great defense, fantastic offense, great special teams. They had it all. They were a magical team. They were great fun to work with. A lot of those guys, are still friends with each other. So it was really what a Spartan football team is all about. And they capped it off with a huge victory against Marine Catholic in the NCS. And I love to have taken that team to some of those big LA schools and all that, but they never got that chance. But I would have put those guys up against anybody.
This was a team that was solid in every unit on the field, from DBs to receivers, both lines, linebackers, running backs, quarterback. Everybody was a solid football player and a dedicated football player. These guys were hard workers. They were good friends, had great camaraderie, and they translated that into some outstanding play on the football field.
They were just leaders, not only on the football field, but they're leaders in the community. They're really well liked by the student body, by the teachers. I mean, they're a dream in a sense of, as a coach, they really embodied the values of De La Salle and of St. LaSalle and of our mission here, and they represented our school in such a positive way. I was so proud to be their coach on the JVs and also on the varsity, so I got an opportunity to do it, to be coaching them, like I said, as their head JV coach, then coach with them on the varsity, and they're just great members of the community, and a lot of them remained great members of the community still. They're still around. I'm coaching their sons now. It was really one of my finer experiences as a football coach, being around that football team.
I think the first thing comes pride in their school, pride in each other, and a desire to have each other's backs. And it carried over not only on the soccer field, it carried over into their school and everything else. They were so happy to be at De La Salle, and they were such dedicated players to the team. They were a dream to coach. It was just in my experience, and I coached for 37 years, it was the most fun group I've ever been around.
This team was beyond anything we've had before '96, in the sense that they had a great maturity on the team, a lot of good experience, a lot of seniors on this team, and they never shrugged any responsibility. In fact, Dwayne Harris' favorite phrase was, "We got Aiden." Aiden Brown was in goal, and of course, to have 16 shutouts in a season speaks a lot about not just Aiden, but the whole defense in front of him. And so all good teams share some things like good defense, speed, and so on. But this was not just good defense. This was stifling defense. I mean, nobody could get through that four guys back there.
And the back four, along with Aiden, who was all-world goalkeeper, and he's a professional keeper now, is the tightness with which the defense played. You couldn't get by them.
To be honest with you, they were the team that finally people recognized De La Salle soccer program was amazing. We started out in the 80s, and the EBAL was the league to beat. And in '89, as you know, we were the first team other than an EBAL team to win North Coast with a really good team. And after that, we won it 2 or 3 times, the North Coast, and here comes '96. And no doubt about it, no one can actually say that the De La Salle soccer program was a fluke. After '96, that's their legacy. And if you look after '96, what went on over the years, that was one of the cornerstones.
This team was probably the tightest knit team I've ever seen. They were obviously the most talented. And I honestly don't really remember ever having to really raise our voices to them. I mean, we were all in this thing together, and they listened and they responded.
Rob Lambert was probably one of the most dynamic athletes that I first encountered at De La Salle, and he was an outstanding wide receiver and an incredible defensive back. He played free safety for us, and quiet, unassuming, led by example, and he was one of the most courageous, pound for pound, one of the most courageous football players I've ever been around. He was 150 pounds. We played in a really tough Catholic Athletic League back then. We had some great athletes. These running backs would bust through the line, and he'd run up and hit them, and with everything he had, and take them down too. He was just gritty and tough. And on the offensive side of the ball, whenever we needed a first down or we were in trouble and we were 3rd and long, he was our go-to guy, and he had incredible hands, ran great routes. He's just an all-around good football player and well deserving of being in the Hall of Fame. I really enjoyed watching Rob in his athletic career here. He went on after football season and just started getting ready for baseball, and then he turned out to be one of the best baseball players that ever went through this school, and incredible hitter, fielder. He was just a real talent. And he went on a full ride scholarship to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in baseball, and was drafted by the New York Yankees after his college days. He was just, here you have one of these kids at your school, and it's just he was just special all the way around. If he had more weight, he would have been a Division I football player too. I remember driving over. We were riding over to Kezar Stadium to play Sacred Heart in San Francisco on an afternoon. And this was a long commute-filled bus ride, and Rob was behind me in the seat behind me, and I turned around to say something to him, and he was sound asleep. I mean, you could tell he was sound asleep riding on that bus over there, and he slept all the way over, and I thought, that can't be a good thing. And lo and behold, he steps out on that field when he crossed the lines. I mean, the guy was in just an incredible competitor. He did just wonderful things in that game. But that's how he was. Very quiet, very unassuming. You never really thought much about him, like as far as how's he going to hurt us. But when he crossed the lines and got into competition, he was just, a switch went on and he just was incredible. Here was a guy that weighed 150 pounds and could really play this game and make a huge difference. That's the example for everybody. I mean, you can still play, and you don't have to be a giant to really do well in it and excel.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rob Lambert chiming in from Hayden Lake, Idaho. Sorry I couldn't make the ceremony today. Truly wanted to be there, but wasn't able to pull it off. Want to extend a special congratulations to all the other 2014 De La Salle Sports Hall of Fame inductees. Truly is an honor to be mentioned in the same breath with you all and all the other past inductees into the Sports Hall of Fame. Obviously a lot of fond memories looking back, way back when and attending De La Salle. Special thanks to all the teachers, staff, and coaches who made the experience what it was and helped me become the man, the husband, and the father that I am today. With regards to sports, truly was an honor to be able to play for Coach Ladd, being his junior, his very first year. It was definitely an awakening for all of us involved, and Bob and the coaching staff teaching us all how to play with a much higher level of passion than had ever been expected. And it is truly amazing to look back then and think of where the program's gone till this day, and knowing you were part of that in the very beginning. I want to extend a congratulations to Bob for making the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame and all the accomplishments you've accomplished with the program, and glad to see it's in good hands and continues to move forward. On the baseball end, many thanks to Coach Chuck Lafferty and Frank Tammany, who taught us all how to play the game and play it right. And on both teams, can't say enough about the classmates and the teammates I was able to play both sports with. Again, we may not all keep in touch, but nothing but great memories looking back. Playing sports with the likes of Chris Crespi and Chris Trent and Bill Deitch and Ray DePole and Bob Gould. And I also at this time want to just a little note of memorial for a close friend in high school who's been sorely missed all these years, Joe Eastwood. Joe, still think of you to this day, and next go around want you to be able to go through the whole thing with us all. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Again, I truly appreciate the honor of being inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame. It definitely warms my heart to look back on all the memories I've had, both scholastically and academically at De La Salle. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon and the rest of the ceremony, and again, thanks for this special honor. Have a good day. Bye.
BD's the Nutty Professor. That was, I believe, his special teams nickname, and he was our special teams captain his senior year. One of the smartest players that we've ever had here as a football player, but he was also, he was a pretty decorated athlete. He was a guy that played baseball when we were growing up, Little League World Series, and he was a great wrestler as well. He's one of the best football players in the state. I believe he was the Contra Costa Times Player of the Year for the area, which is no easy feat. He was one of the best football players we had on our team. We had a really good team. He was our team leader. He was one of our team captains. He was an incredible football player. He really was. He was a great wrestler. Obviously, he progressed, I think, further than anybody had really gone in state for ever or a really long time.
The thing is about Greg, he is always thinking. He's always got something on his mind. He's always cooking up something. He's got great energy. He's great around the students. If you could be around him, the kids love him here. There's no doubt about it. He's always been someone that's for the kids, and he's for all types of kids too. That's what I really appreciate about Greg. It's not just the athletes; it's all the different types of kids that you find in yourself in this, that you can find at this school. He's a friend to all of them, and he's a great teacher and a great coach.
It's a great feeling to know that you could look to your right and have Allenbaugh there, and you trust him. Trust him to make the play.
Him and I used to spend entire summers working on scouting reports. Him and I drove together. We worked out together. We lifted together. That guy drove me, and he made me progress as an athlete, let alone himself. His appetite for learning and becoming better and working hard it was voracious. It still is. It was something that, he couldn't become satisfied in anything he did. If he could have 15 tackles in a game and he'd miss one, and he wouldn't be able to sleep about it. He'd come in the next day, watch more film, and he'd work even harder in the weight room. It was pretty incredible. We played Clayton Valley. His senior year was my junior year, and they came out, and I think out of the first 15 offensive plays they ran, he had like 13 tackles. It was the least tired I've ever been in a game in my life. It was a game that we ended up winning 75-0, and we were playing really well. But I remember I knew the plays and I knew what was going on, and I couldn't beat him to the ball. And he was so tuned in for that game. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. I literally couldn't get to the ball quick enough, and every time it was him on a solo tackle, getting up, another play, another solo tackle. It was one of the most incredible things I've seen on a football field. It really was. It was pretty awe-inspiring. BD's one of the most important guys we have on campus right now. He's involved in wrestling. He's involved in football. He's an incredible English teacher. He's involved with the broadcast club, student leadership. Without him, I think De La Salle would lose a little bit of its soul. People talk about the brotherhood and things like that. Well, BD lives the brotherhood. It's a little bit of a cliche, but it's true. He's a guy that lives for his students. He loves his students. And, he sees the potential that they have in them. And he tries to get that potential out of them in every avenue that we have here on campus. He is literally one of the most important guys we have here.
Joe was a real quiet guy. I mean, Joe doesn't talk very much. He's just a very low-key guy. In fact, I remember, my first open gym here at De La Salle. We were in the summertime. We were playing on this crossways because we had a lot of players. And on the older kids' court, somebody got hurt, and we needed a guy. And I yelled over to one of the coaches. I said, "Send over your best player." And Joe came over and never went back to that other court. He just stepped right in and did some wonderful things, and came in and was a backup player his first 4 or 5 games of his freshman year, and then stepped into a starting role. And I think we won about 22 games in a row once he got into the lineup. But Joe's just a very understated guy. He just really doesn't talk a lot about himself, doesn't talk a lot, period. He just lets his actions speak for him on the court and off the court. He truly was a coach on the floor. In fact, in that state final game when we ran an out-of-bounds play, the way he set up the play, just by making eye contact with me and making the defender think he was going to go that way, and then went the other way, which gave him that step to draw the foul. Just a real heady player. And like I said, he wasn't a vocal leader, but he knew where to get people, and people knew that if you were playing with Joe, you were going to get the ball if you were in the right spot. He was one of the hardest working kids I've ever seen. Joe just worked on his game nonstop. I remember he had a little case of tendonitis in his knees, and he would come in the gym and just shoot free throw after free throw after free throw. Just always was working on his game and trying to improve. And then, of course, in the state final, when he got fouled, I turned to Coach Sullivan. When he had 2 free throws to win the game, I turned to Coach before he shot him. I said, "We just won a state championship." I knew it because I knew Joe wouldn't miss those 2 free throws. He'd put too much time and energy into it. Well, I think he's a great leader on and off the court as well, but a soft-spoken guy. But I think the fact that I think of in a school that has some amazing athletic accomplishments throughout all of our sports, he is the all-time leader in wins. I think he might have lost 10 games here in his career as a 4-year starter. That's pretty amazing to me that it was all about winning with Joe. It was never about himself, although he's one of the top scorers in school history. I mean, he scored 67% from the field goal. That's what he did one year from the 2-point field goal range. Shot 67%, pretty amazing. But I think you can throw all those records away, and I would just summarize Joe with one word: he's a winner. Demetrius was just a truly gifted athlete in a school that's produced some amazing athletes. I think he certainly stands out. He was a guy that walked into the gym and you just knew instantly that this boy could be a professional athlete, whether it be football or basketball, or maybe anything he decided to do. He was quick, he was fast, he competed, everything came very easy to him. But he had a talent that was truly unique.
Demetrius Williams, to me, followed in the great footsteps of Amani Toomer. I thought Amani kind of set the bar for wide receiver. I think Demetrius was the second greatest receiver we probably ever had at this school. I remember about Demetrius when he was younger, he was all arms, really gangly, but he could move down the field, really smooth. He was actually faster than he really looked, and he had great hands, and he had great leaping ability. Anything near him he could catch, but you know, he went to college, of course, and became a receiver and also in the NFL, but he was also a fantastic defensive back as well. He played corner his senior year, made some great plays for us there, punt returner, kick returner, so he was just an all-around great athlete.
I think he destroys that myth that you can't play two sports. I mean, he did, and he played them very well. I mean, he was a major contributor on the basketball team. He was an outstanding defender. He could guard anyone. He put his mind to it. He could do anything on the basketball court. He could score, he could get to the rim, he could shoot, but his main talent was just as a lockdown defender, almost like a cornerback in football.
Well, I think Demetrius' coming out party was the modern day game at the University of Pacific, where he caught 3 touchdown passes. That's where everybody, you know, not only around in Concord here, but across the nation found out how great every player was. So I always remembered that game. And then I also remember his senior year. I don't know what player it was against, but it was early in the games. They threw a curl in front of him, and he just totally ripped a guy as a DB. So as he was just not only was, like I said, a great receiver, but he was a great defensive player as well.
I think it was his appreciation, really. I think when we won that state title, he was this guy that we all saw as sort of a guy that really knew how good he was and knew how special he could be and was. And yet, I saw the little boy side of him when we won the state championship, to just see him really excited as can be. He'd won a state title in football, but then to come and win one in basketball, too. To just remember seeing his face and the joy on his face, it really warmed my heart.
Matt is probably one of my most favorite athletes I ever coached. And I would say that he was probably one of the top 3 leaders that I ever had as a player. He was just, what a joy to have on a team, and just an incredible football player. I'm convinced that if Matt had not, damaged his arm or hurt his arm in college, that he would most definitely be playing today in the NFL and doing quite well. He was exceptional and all the way around. One of the things I liked most about Matt was his leadership skills. And even as a sophomore, he was like coaching a man. He was like coaching a college kid, and listened well, understood everything, worked hard, worked on his own, and he just had that charismatic personality that drew other players to him. I mean, when he spoke to them, they all listened and they all respected him, and you couldn't ask for anything more from a high school player when I was coaching him. He was just the ultimate example of what it means to be an outstanding leader, and he showed it all 3 years he started for us.
Matt Gutierrez might be one of the toughest human beings I've ever met. Just a great competitor and a great person. When I think of the things that a De La Salle young man tries to embody, I think of Matt Gutierrez. I think he was the ideal student at this school, and probably the ideal student athlete at this school.
Matt is one of the most stand-up guys I've ever met. I mean, if you asked him to do anything, he'd be there in a heartbeat. If you needed help or you wanted advice or you wanted him to help out at practice, he'd show up. It would be no questions asked. If he could do it, he'd be there. And that's how he conducts his life. He's probably one of the most loyal friends guys could have. He's probably one of the most dependable people that a person could have in their lives. And he's very dedicated and loyal to us, and very appreciative of the time and effort we put into him. He's come back and he's coached here at our lower levels. Doesn't matter to him, whether he's coaching our varsity kids or coaching our freshman kids. He wants to give back. He wants to share his knowledge of the game, and he just wants to help other kids. He was just one of the most unselfish guys I've been around in the athletic field.
I think Matt just has a quiet grace about him. I think he's a great role model for kids everywhere. And the fact that he stayed involved at the school, he comes around a lot, so he's always willing to speak to the kids and the football teams and the basketball teams or any teams. He's just been very gracious and very kind with his time and has really modeled the way a student athlete should live. So I think he's been an outstanding role model throughout his career.